today. There is no universal law that guarantees that white folks shall always win today, that they will always be on top, and therefore African people should be aware of the fact that we can no longer depend upon white prosperity and depend upon white domination to provide us with second banana existences or existences at all. Now, if you read this year's The State of Black America, 1993, put out by the Urban League, and I urge people to read this particular publication, which is bulging with statistics. I think it will sober you up to a very great extent. But let's again look for a moment at the nature of the American economy in terms of jobs, since we are being educated to get jobs, aren't we? New York Times, February 28, 1993. Clinton plan confounds union chiefs. The headline reads, "Wanted, high-tech jobs for retrained workers." In other words, you're retraining workers for jobs, but what? Where are the jobs? And it starts by saying, what American workers need are a lot more high-wage, high-skilled, quality jobs, as President Clinton called them last week. Find those jobs and train people to do them, and the government, the schools, industry, and labor unions will build a prosperous middle class and the mighty American economy of the 21st century. We need an aggressive attempt to create high-tech jobs of the future, the president said. That was just a thematic salvo to the jobs plan that the administration will eventually put together. But the planners might have to do some heavy thinking about one dimension. Just what are those high-tech jobs? What are they? Where are they? Where are those jobs waiting for you simply because you got an education? They go in and ask other questions. What jobs are you going to train people for? This is America. These are the questions that America is asking itself. What kind of jobs are we going to train our people for? But this question is being asked in Germany. It's being asked in England. It's being asked in France. It's being asked across the European diaspora as well. It's being asked in Russia, in Eastern Europe. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, white American European capitalism is in a state of crisis, and that means that African American people who are dependent upon the health of capitalism are also in a state of crisis. You've heard that phrase, when white folk get a cold, black folk get the flu. Well, you're going to really get the flu with this one. The other question is asked, does Ron Carey, president of the Teamsters Union, know? No. He says, I would not know how that comes about. Giant corporations, giant companies like General Motors, IBM, United Technologies, Boeing, Eastman Kodak, and Sears Roebuck are still shedding workers, many of them high-wage, highly skilled machinists, tool makers, and sheet metal workers, accountants, supervisors, and systems engineers. So does that sound like a great opportunity awaiting you simply because you're qualified? Within 1 week, Sears Roebuck and these other companies, with one week, announced 100,000 layoffs. There's a hoax around this idea that this country is in dire need of skilled workers. How can it be in dire need of skilled workers when it is laying off skilled workers by the thousands? And not only is it laying off skilled workers by the thousands, it is laying off skilled managerial workers by the thousands, middle management people. You see, those jobs that we as black folk used to talk about that set the glass ceiling beyond which we can't go, well, those jobs also now are being eliminated. The unemployment in the managerial areas is shrinking, not expanding. So then there's severe crisis. With GM and IBM boarding up factories, many of those jobs will never return. I tried to warn my people that America is going through a major restructuring in its economic system. We are not just suffering from some kind of recovery after which it is over, we'll return to the jobs from which we were laid off. These jobs from which we are being laid off are disappearing, never to come back again. You have now in this country a recovery that is occurring, but not creating new jobs. And this is a part of the problem. So you can now have an increase in business activity, yet that increase does not mean an increase in job opportunities. And what does that imply then? It implies either that more people are working overtime that are already there, but on a more ominous level, it implies that while people were being laid off, their jobs were being restructured or phased out and being replaced by computerized activities, or the nation's corporations are completely reorganizing themselves so that they will not need as many workers in the future. The companies in this country now are shipping jobs out of the country, period. They are deindustrializing this nation, which means that whole factories are being just taken wholesale out of this country and being planted in other nations across the world. Which means then that the good old factory jobs that used to pay well are no longer there. That is why black people are suffering in Detroit, suffering in the Midwest, suffering in the Northeast to a degree that they've never suffered before, because these areas used to be the chief industrial areas of this country. Now, these areas are being stripped of their industrial base, and the industries are being shipped out to other nations. And you got people now who are working for $4 a day on a job that we used to work for at $10, $20, and $30 an hour. And therefore, the corporations are no longer interested in hiring people who are demanding $15, $20, $30 an hour when they can take these jobs right down to Mexico and have the Mexicans and others work for $3, $4, $5 a day, ladies and gentlemen. This is the nature of what's going on in the world. They're no longer that interested either in developing computer technologists when they can hire a computer technologist in Ireland or in some other part of the world with their computer hooked directly into a main terminal in the United States so that information can be put directly into that computer outside of the country and communicated directly to computers here. Why then hire an American worker at $10, $15 an hour to run a computer when you can hire a computer operator overseas for the same price? You see, this communications revolution has drastically restructured the system. It means then that a computer operator in Ireland or some other part of the world can communicate as rapidly with you in America as you can communicate with someone downtown. As a matter of fact, when you call up now to get an airline reservation or so forth, you may be talking to someone in Jamaica or talking to someone in some other island somewhere and thinking that you're talking to them right here in the country. It has gotten to the point now where it is cheaper to employ people halfway around the world, ship the stuff back over here, than it is to make the stuff right here in America. I am in publishing. We send our books out to get printed. In actuality, it's cheaper now for us to send our books probably to Taiwan and have them printed there and shipped back to the United States than to have them printed in the country, say like in Michigan, and have a truck drive them to New York City. This is the kind of thing that's going on here. This is not just an ordinary recession. This is a major restructuring of the world. And if African people do not wake up and understand what is going on, we are going to be surplus people. And this country has a very clear record of what it does with surplus people. It does not feed them welfare. It does not give them handout. It kills them. Read the history of the Native American. The Native American in the United States was not destroyed simply because they were surplus, you see. They were of little or no economic value to this country. And therefore, this country did not intend to feed what it called useless mouths. And therefore, it could live